600 valve. So there again, bowl cuts on these All Pros ended up at 88.08 and 85%, and those were blended they ended up very nice as far as the blending, the back wall, the short turn, all your critical areas are where, as they should be. So I want to go ahead and get that information in this video since I said I would. Then again, this customer is using the LS6, those blue LS6 valve springs. I don't know if you guys can see, but I just take a red shop rag, fold it over 3 times, 1, 2, 3, roll it, and stick it in the chamber. That'll hold your valves proud, or hold your valves up, so that you don't end up with a problem trying to do your spring compression. But before that, you got to put on your, see these, you can use this technique, and I'm not going to say I invented it because I saw it on YouTube, but when you want to put on your valve guide, either your seal or your locator, or like these factory replacements has the valve guide seal, positive seals, and the locator all one piece. What you do is get I think this is 8 by 125 millimeter bolt. I think the person I stole this idea off of was using like I want to say it was like one of the water pump bolts or something off of an LS engine. I just happen to have this particular bolt. So what I do is I will take this, and my bolt ends up being where I thread it all the way down. I will thread it until it seats. Then what I'll do is I will have my guide, then what I'll do is I set this on top of that deal, and I can just leverage the seal on, because I'm not comfortable. I don't like sitting there hammering the stupid seals onto the head. So I can literally cantilever the pressure to fully seat these positive seals or these locator seal combos. Literally, you just screw this in the head, boom. Put a little of I don't even have a 12-point socket. It's 12 millimeter deep well socket. It literally set right on this part of the wrench, right on top of the seal, and whenever you push down, seats it perfect. No issues. You're not damaging it. No problems. So now we're looking at these beautiful blue. Everyone's probably familiar with the blue LS6 style beehives. I've got my compression tool lightly seated. I don't have to use a driver or nothing, because you literally just need to barely seat it on there. And on these heads, and I did verify 500 million times, I needed a 40 thousandths locator, a 30 thousandths shim, and then a 60 thousandths shim. And I think I explained, I hope I did, in one of the previous videos, when you're using these stock positive seal locator combos, you can't put the shims underneath the locator like you would if you were using a 2-piece design, because it ends up raising the positive seal so high that it doesn't get good contact with the end of the valve guide. So I hope you guys can understand what that means, is that if you were to try to put these shims underneath your locator, then install it, the top of the valve positive seal doesn't grab enough of the top of the guide to make it seal properly. So what you got to do, only in this circumstance, you have to put your shims on top of the locator, then your valve springs. Now, like I think I said before, if you have a positive seal and separated locator, or if you were really, hurting for money, you could actually take and cut these two apart to where they're not connected. You could make it work. You could section out a piece of that, but of course, most people don't want to work that hard. They'll just go buy something else. So anyway, in this one-piece design, you have to put your shims on top of the locator. I hope you guys understand that. And see if we can get this thing put together real quick. This is always fun because we're coming up with this. Starting this thing up here is always a challenge. You're centered where we want it. Because this is the trickiest part about these dual spring these compressors that do 2 springs at once. You have to get them started where you need them. And then as you put pressure on them, you have a little bit of an opportunity to kind of wiggle those springs around to maintain your alignment. Like when you start bringing this thing down, if you see you're a little bit off, nudge it. I don't know if you guys can see in the video, but you can kind of move these springs around just a little bit. So what you'll do is just as you're coming down, if you see anything getting too far out of whack, where you think you're going to have a problem getting your lock in there, go ahead and push it over. Bring it on down. Now what I like to do, which I think a lot of people have put in videos, take a little blob of this Vaseline, and I do put a little more than I probably should, probably because I'm doing a video, but put a little blob of that on there and start trying to fight in your locks, because it always wants to fight you when you're doing a video. If you can get that thing to set in that groove, you'll be in good shape. This one's the one that's going to end up giving me a hard time, I can tell. But what we do, and if it gets away from you, starts acting crazy or whatever, just take your time. If you have to, get a magnet, get it pulled around where you want it, because it will try to get away from you. And you don't want to fall too far down in your retainer, because then it ends up giving you a problem when you're trying to get them lined up. What I do is try to get them stuck, and then I turn them all, I don't even know why, I turn them all where they go left and right. The openings are all the same. I don't know why I do that. It's like a weird little OCD or something. But I like to try to get all the little halves on there pretty much lined up left and right. And what you do is start slowly watching your pieces. As that thing starts letting go, once you get it that far, just unloosen this thing. I use a high pressure moly lube at all the contact points on the compressor tool to make sure I don't have any binding or galling or issues with my threads. Oh Lord. But I wanted you guys to see these heads kind of release all the bolt cut information, verified installed heights, the LS6 springs. He's running, I think he said he was just running the hot cam. I'm not sure which cam he's running, because I think the hot cam's, gosh, I think it's only like a 525 lift. But I'm pretty sure these LS6 springs will go up to like 570. So he should be more than good on that. But as a warning, situational warning, that has got to be an area where you have to be careful. Because you would not, think about all the people you've seen just on YouTube alone that have swapped out a set of valve springs. They basically, you buy one of these tools, whatever, you get one of them little cheap flat plates that bolts to your, and they do one spring at a time, whatever, that doesn't matter. Think about how many people swap out valve springs on a set of heads. They don't even check the installed height. They just assume that oh, these valve springs go for an LS. They must be right if I put them in. No, that's not necessarily the case. It is not right just because you put them in. Because look at on this. Now, granted, this is an aftermarket head, so that could be a different situation. But I'm talking about, I needed 130 thousandths worth of shims. Okay, let's say every head's going to have that little locator and seal. Okay, our stock head's going to have that. I had to put in 90 thousandths worth of shims to get this to a true 1/800 installed height. Well, if that thing wasn't shimmed, I can guarantee you these springs would be nowhere near the seat pressures and open pressures to properly control a performance camshaft. Something I do after I'm done is I will lightly tap those to guarantee those locks are locked. Tight as a drum, no issues, no squirting out locks, none of that junk. So now these all pro cylinder heads are assembled. Got a 10W40 on all my valve, in the valve guides and on the valve stems. I lubricate them with 10W40 motor oil. I put 5 drops of oil in each guide and then lightly coat each valve stem before final assembly, because you don't want to put in a dry valve guide to stem situation, because that can stick a valve, burn stuff up. Something I found out that I wasn't aware of was that you're never supposed to use thick paste, like a thick paste that you would use on like an Iski Rev paste, or even that old white lithium grease that everybody used to use when they assembled engines. You're never supposed to put that really thick stuff inside your valve guides, because they can experience a lot of heat, especially on initial startup on a brand new engine, and it can actually cook those thicker pastes into like a crusty material, which amplifies the heat and can actually stick a valve. So if you know anybody that's assembling heads, thinner is better. Even if you got to put drops of oil in there like I do, that maybe make it smoke just a touch when you first start the engine, but at least you're not going to stick or burn a valve, but in the head. So anyway, nothing thick. Stay away from thick, goopy lubricants when you're assembling your heads, because that can cause a problem. Make sure you lube those things and assemble it with as much accuracy as you can. Getting these all set up at 1/800. Seat pressures are good. I did check to make sure he had ample clearance between the bottom of the valve spring retainer and the guide. He can basically coil bind these and it's not going to touch. He's in good shape on that. So anyway, that's the end video on the All-Star heads. I will try to call him tonight and see if he wants to drive by tomorrow and pick them up. So anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully I can teach you something or learn something from you guys or whatever. I said this is all about learning how to make power and do things safely.